tacos dipped in consommé, the queen of street food in Palermo, and everything on a stick. This week, it's all about street food.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. Destination Eat Drink is for foodies who like to travel and travelers who love to eat. And this week, it's street food. From the U.S. to Sicily to Australia and South Korea. But first, take a moment, rate and review the podcast. By giving up those 5 stars, you help other foodie travelers just like yourself find the show. And I just published my latest foodie travel guide ebook. It's to the seaside town of Monopoli in Puglia, Italy. It has all the best things to eat and drink, including a pasta dish topped with crackers of all things, a layered coffee drink with a kick, and a side trip to a town that celebrates volare. And it has some of the best frozen treats in Italy, too. Download your copy at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink, and thank you very much. This week on the podcast, we're revisiting some of my favorite conversations about street food. There's the Arepa Lady of Jackson Heights, barbecue skewers in Sydney, Australia, arancina in Sicily, and the ugly donuts of Seoul. And I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Michela Malazzi is the creator and host of the TV show Bare Feet. She's also a professor of dance at New York University. Michela tells me about the Jackson Heights neighborhood of New York and the best street food there. When you went to Jackson Heights, I was getting really excited because I was like, oh, I hope she has the Arepa Lady on, because her son, E. Schneider, was on my podcast about a year ago. And he is like a 21st century Renaissance man. He's a total foodie. Yeah. He does food tour guides. He's also a punk rocker. You know, he's got bands and stuff like that. Really cool guy. It was great to talk to him. And he told me the story of the Arepa Lady and how, you know, she came and took over the city. Had an article in the New York Times back in the 80s and just took over the city. Talk about the Arepa Lady and talk about her arepas.
Yeah. So the Arepa Lady is this, we actually didn't get to meet her. She was in Colombia at the time, chilling. We met with her grandson. So it was wonderful. Yeah. And he, they're expanding. They're opening 2 more locations. At the time that we met with them, they hadn't opened yet, but they were building them out. I mean, that's amazing to be opening more locations of a restaurant in the middle of a pandemic. That is something to be said. Incredible food. You know, she started as selling arepas on the street in Jackson Heights to her community.
It was just a food cart, basically.
Yep. And it's just grown into this amazing movement. And the arepas are incredible. When I say you need to go there hungry, you need to go there hungry because they're filling. There's a lot of queso in the arepas, depending on what type of arepa you get. They also had chicharron. They we ate so well. And I always have to remember, because we tend to do the food segments together. Like if we're exploring a neighborhood, we'll go to 3 different spots. Usually it's like the rule of 3. 2 of those are usually food. For this particular segment, we did all 3 were food because we were doing sort of a walking food tour through Jackson Heights. And I need to remember, like, I can't eat that much food in one afternoon. It's a lot of food. But yeah, the Arepa Lady, it's a small little restaurant in Jackson Heights. And again, they're opening a few more. I think one in Astoria. I think they mentioned, I can't remember where the other one is going to be, but it was just wonderful. And then the other spots we feature was Birrialandia. I don't know if you know what Birrialandia is.
I was going to ask you about this. This is a type of Mexican taco, but I don't know I don't think I've ever had it. So tell me about it, Michela.
Yeah. So it's a food truck. And when I tell you a line down the block starts like half an hour before this truck's open. And they have a few other locations as well. I think they just open a location or have a truck in the Bronx. They definitely have one in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg. There's one in Jackson Heights. Birria is the taco that you dip into like a consomme, into a stew. And so you get this little cup of stew and you get your taco, and how you eat it is you dunk it in and just soak up this amazing broth. And Jose, who's the owner, the chef, he's a trained chef and had worked in so many restaurants and wanted to finally open his own business. I think he went back to California or Mexico, and saw this craze of birria, and he brought it to New York, and he can safely claim that he really brought that craze to New York City. Now you'll see birria trucks everywhere. And Birrialandia is like, he said he wanted it to be like Disneylandia, so Birrialandia. And it really is. And they only serve 4 things on the menu. That's it. You can only order 4 things on the menu, and that's all you need. They're just so delicious. So the tortillas, they're like crispy. They put them on the grill. The tacos are beautiful. The birria, the consomme it's gorgeous. And again, there's a line around the block. It doesn't matter what day it is, what the weather is. And when we were filming, we got to cut the line, obviously, and everyone was not happy with us. But, we're doing this interview. Yeah. But luckily we have our cameras. So they're like, right. Okay, I guess she gets a pass. But we had to be quick because, this is a business. We don't want to get in any of their way. But it was just delicious. Absolutely delicious.
Justin Steele is the founder of Local Sauce Tours in Sydney. He tells me about the Chinese street food cuisine in his city. This is such a big city with so much going on, it would be impossible to tackle the entire thing. So what I thought we'd do is kind of break it down, first of all, into some different neighborhoods. And you guys do tours in different neighborhoods at Local Sauce. You do one in Chinatown. Tell me about the Chinese community in Sydney, and what are some of the best dishes for us to try when we visit you in Chinatown?
Yeah, so I guess for a lot of my North American guests, they're really surprised by how big Sydney's Chinatown is. It is the largest Chinatown in the Southern Hemisphere, but that's not really saying much. That's a stat that Australian people like to throw around all the time around a whole bunch of things, saying that we're the tallest, biggest, largest, oldest in the Southern Hemisphere, because we don't really have too much competition down here. But so having said that, the Chinatown that we have in Sydney is quite large. I would say there's around 200 or so restaurants just around Sydney's Chinatown. And that's not just Chinese food, it's it's Pan-Asian. There's Thai restaurants, there's Japanese restaurants, there's Malaysian, there's Vietnamese, there's, just a bit of everything really. But it has been the historic Chinatown in Sydney for well over 100 years now. And yeah, it's, when you're talking about Chinese food, it's really, there's so many different varieties. They talk about the 8 main types of cuisine in Chinese culture, the bada cai xi. But then there's also subsets, and there is everything you could possibly want to try that you could get in China. You can get in Sydney's Chinatown.
When you visit Chinatowns around the U.S., we lived in Hawaii for a while. There's a great Chinatown there as well. One of the things that I always think about with Chinese food is street food. Asian food in general has great street food. Would we see good street food in Sydney, in the Chinatown area?
You would, but it's not sold from street stalls or carts or things like that. People setting up just on the side of the street like they do in lots of parts of China and Asia for that matter. We do have things like in Chinatown, they have the Friday night markets where a whole bunch of temporary, like little mini marquee structures set up with different sellers. But most of the times it's sold from small restaurants, but it's all the same dishes, I guess.
What would be one or two of your favorite dishes, Justin?
So I studied in China, and, for me, a really big part of kind of the late night eating culture in China would be the barbecue skewers that you have. So they might be lamb, they might be vegetables, but it's some guy who's set up outside the street and, outside the bars or karaoke or clubs or whatever. And he's got a little charcoal box there and he's just turning over all these different meats and cooking them in the charcoals with a whole bunch of cumin and spicy chilies and salt and pepper and all these other kind of flavors to it. So that's one of my favorite dishes. And there's a few places in Chinatown here in Sydney that you can sample that. It's really about, I guess for a lot of these places is just looking where the locals go, where the young Chinese international students or young workers from Chinese or Asian background and seeing what restaurants they're going into, rather than necessarily going to the ones that are on the main pedestrian strip or the ones that have, someone out the front trying to beckon you into their restaurant. Those ones, tend not to be the best ones.
Enrica Bruno is a foodie tour guide in Palermo. She tells me about the most famous street food in Sicily. It's called arancina. Another dish that I wanted to bring up, one more that I wanted to talk about, Enrica, is arancina. Because, these are famous. Even when we lived in Austin, Texas for a while, there were places that were selling arancina. And the last time I was in Palermo, it seemed like there was becoming this trend of sort of hipster arancina with different kinds of toppings and different kinds of fillings and stuff like that. Could you talk about just tell us what they are in general, and then tell me about the culture of arancina now, today in Palermo?
Yes, of course. So arancina is the queen of our street food. Arancina, first of all, is a girl. I mean, all the names that ends with A in Italian are feminine. Okay, so in Palermo is arancina with A. In Catania, it's a boy. It's arancino, so with O. So first of all, there is a big big trouble on the name. So how can we talk? Can we call this dish arancino or arancina? So in Palermo, be sure always to ask for an arancina. Otherwise, the vendors are not going to give you anything. Okay. And it's a round rice bowl. So historically is stuffed with ground meat, minced meat, and which is like a sort of, we call in Italian, ragu. It's beef meat with mixed with onions, with peas and carrots. So the traditional arancina is without any tomato sauce, okay? Because this dish was invented by the Arabs, so more or less in the 10th century. And in that period in Europe, there weren't any tomatoes, okay? So today it's really hard to find the traditional arancina without any tomato sauce. Also because tomatoes are very cheap. So everybody tends to use more tomatoes than, for example, saffron that gives the yellow color to the rice, because the saffron is much more expensive than tomato sauce, of course. But today, just a couple of historical places are still making arancina with the ancient recipe. Today, yes, as you correctly mentioned, so there are many different arancinas chains in town. Sprigola, Che Palle are these names of those very famous arancina chains. So you can find different flavors, even with Nutella. With mortadella, with pistachios, with spinaches, or with fish, for example. But to be honest, this is much more for tourists. The locals don't never eat Nutella arancina. So don't never eat, the shrimp arancina. Okay. For us, it's something unbelievable. For us, the two main flavors are, or we call a carne or a burro. A carne is with meat. A burro is with cheese and ham. Usually it's a mozzarella cheese.
Daniel Gray is the brains behind Seoul Eats, a food tour company in the South Korean capital. He talks about the great street food of his city and the best places to get it.
Street food is always evolving, and it used to be something that you would have en route to where you were going.
Right.
Or so it would be like tteokbokki, which is like spicy rice cake in a little tiny cup, or odeng, which are fish cakes that are kind of I don't know. They put it on a stick. They put everything on a stick. Hot dogs on a stick. Sliced up tornado potatoes on a stick. Rice cakes with sausages dipped in red chili paste on a stick. Everything on a stick. So that was the big thing. Street food used to be something that was just something that you would have out with friends. It wasn't a meal. It was just something that you have as, I don't know how to explain it. It's more like you want to change the atmosphere, the mood. You want to have fun. It's never something that's supposed to be like filling, So when Koreans go out, it's like a good night out means that you did like 6-7 different things. You had some street food, you went to karaoke, you went to an arcade place, you might have eaten some barbecue, you might have had some, you might have had some coffee, you might have went to get dressed up and take funny pictures. It's like all of these different things together. You're taking several weeks of experiences and cramming it into like a day. And that's fun. And that's where street food comes in. It's like something that's supposed to be cheap and interesting and fun. And then you just, you enjoy, but then you go and do something else. It's a really fun and exciting way to eat.
Is there a particular hot spot in Seoul? I mean, Seoul is a massive city. This is why it's so difficult to distill it down into one thing. But I'm wondering, is there a particular place where you would tell people to go if they're coming there?
I mean, it's nowadays with COVID, things aren't open all the time. But the hot spots that are still available for street food is Myeongdong has a lot of good street food stuff. I think it's incredibly touristy and overpriced, but it's still fun to go there. If you're a tourist, you won't mind. As a local, I find that it's become a little bit too much, but for a tourist coming here, they would find it really fun. But you're getting stuff like lobster on a stick with cheese and sauce, and it's like $20. Or you'll get hotdak, which is like the fried stuffed cinnamon sugar donuts with seeds and other stuff there. I mean, you'll get giant fried squid that needs two giant poking sticks because one will not hold the whole thing up. And you'll get lemonades, different types of aids. They love like sparkling aids with lemon and other stuff in it. Crazy like cotton candy stuff. It's not really authentic. And what else are they doing? They're doing it was kind of an ice cream with marshmallow on the outside, which that they will roast a marshmallow on the outside and you still have ice cream on the inside. bungobang, which is like a waffle fish bread that's stuffed with custard or red bean or chocolate or anything now. I mean, in Myeongdong, it's like the show where you have people trying to create this new trend. So it's a bit more creative, a bit more experimental. Hongdae has a lot of good street food, and I like the ambience a bit more because you have a lot of kids that are doing the busking on the street. So you have some street food areas, and then you have performers there as well, which is really nice. And Insadong has some good street food stalls still. And all the markets, like Gwangjang Market definitely still has some stuff, but it's not real street food. You still have to kind of sit down, but you're like sitting in the market and eating. Yeah. So that's kind of the difference. Or you're like, you're going to take it and you're going to, get it to go, take it home. You know, there might be some little street food things like the ugly donuts, which are like really misshapen, like, leavened flour donuts that's, dipped in sugar. But it's the street food and the markets are fine, but, it's some places you have to like take a quick seat. You have to sit down and eat it.
Okay, that's Daniel Gray. You can find out more about his food tours at souleats.com. And you can find out more about Michela Malazzi at travelbarefeet.com. Justin's company, Local Sauce, is at localsaucetours.com.au. And you can reach out to Enrica at alternativetourspalermo.it. Check out the show notes for links to all these sites. Well, that's it for this week. Next week, we're in South America's foodie capital, Lima, Peru, to cook a meal on hot rocks in a hole, getting judged for your potato dishes, and purple corn gnocchi. Delicious. Don't miss that. Until then, there's plenty of foodie travel at destinationeatdrink.com. I just posted a new video. This one is about a monster sandwich festival in Portugal. You can watch that by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or go to my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@destinationeatdrink946. There's also a brand new foodie travel guide ebook for you to download at Buy Me a Coffee. It's for the seaside city of Monopoli, a gorgeous place on the Adriatic that's not on too many people's radars. Get yours at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson. I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.